Coach Helen for YouFit Studio. We're going live around I called it Your Sweet Tooth Troubles, and we'll talk around it a little bit, just where it comes from, just why some of us are just have that drawing or craving towards it. Some theories which I can kind of understand a little bit as to why we do, and I'm not going to go into a deep history of it because, you know, just a general overview of how sugar has changed throughout around in life, actually, and how it's now pretty much everywhere, and it's likened to be one of the things that most people are hooked on over anything else, because they're not really aware that it's in their food or their drink, etc., and can be a little sneaky ninja, like I talked about before. You have your sneaky ninjas. Sugar is definitely a sneaky ninja, and there's certain things that actually, as I'll reference as I go through this, because there is some clients who work with us, there are some things they definitively do notice when they start to change their dietary choices, and what happens when it comes to sugar and things like that, like where it changes, what happens, what they generally start to see, and I mean, I don't think there's I can only go through experience from working with clients, what's happening when kind of their taste around sugar changes and why it's happening, etc. So that's what we generally go through. And also just some, as always, so I said the other day, is some hows. We'll have a good how. So how to start to notice your own behaviours with sugar, where you can start to take notice of it. And I trust me, I've got one coming up next week where I have so much sugar to show you. You won't know what to do with it all. I mean, I've got to go shopping. I'll probably have to go tonight, actually. God help! I think the checkout person's going to think there's something wrong with the amount of stuff I'm about to buy with sugar in it, but we'll see. So stay tuned for that one over the next few days, where I'll start banging around loads of sugar. It's going to have to go on the bin, or someone's going to get, like I said the other day, someone's going to get an early selection box for Christmas with all this chocolates in it that I'm getting rid of. So, okay, I love this as a saying when it comes to sugar. Do you else have this spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down? Love it. I'm not going to sing that. Let's not do that to anybody. Nobody needs to see or hear that. However, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down is yet one of those sayings that everything is made better or nicer or just generally all right through sugar. And it's kind of culturally infused in a lot of situations, as in anything that involves usually some degree of pleasurable experience. For some people, they will see that and actually live that as actually sugar does make everything better. And there is a theory. I'll call it a theory, in that generally speaking, I'll say humanoids. I don't think that's the right terminology. As people will say, there's some argument to say that the reason why we're drawn to sugar from a way back when, let's not put dates on it, I'm not one of those historians, however, generally we would avoid bitter foods or tastes because they were generally likened to have poison in them. And so if you think of like berries and things like that, generally the taste was a signifier that those were safe foods, etc. Which is why actually chocolate doesn't grow on trees, so let's not make that argument. However, generally speaking, when it comes to taste and taste sensation, we are built to be drawn more towards a sweet flavouring that's naturally in the environment because they were deemed to be safe and edible and thoroughly okay, as opposed to bitter tastes which were a sign of poison or poisonous foods or foods that can be digested easily. So yeah, that is a theory as to why. As I said, dairy milk or any other chocolate, actually, all others are available, does not grow on trees. Therefore, what we used to get, as you see where I'm going with this, is quite, you get sugar from quite natural sources. So you go for like rice, wheat, corn, potatoes, even pasta kind of developed as a source of actually food sources where we'd get sugar from, because all those do actually break down into sugar, not just the naturally growing fruits that are available around about if you go berry picking as such, if you still go wild. But what happened is it actually got into processed sugar. We loved a bit of processed sugar because it went into processed food. And there was a definitive change from processing raw sugar and just adding it into the processed food. And that was a massive game changer in terms of how we consume sugar within our diets. That entire period of time, those few decades, did bring it into a hell of a lot of stuff. Not only that, we also went into the phase of, if anyone remembers this, the low fat. It's still there, actually, to be fair. The generation of low fat, where low fat did mean low fat and low taste for some people, and the lack of low taste meant that people, or manufacturers, shall I say, or food companies would add more sugar into low-fat foods to still make them tasty, or encourage people to still want to eat them. And the things about processed food with sugar, generally high in trans fats, what's the word? We'll just say crap. We'll just call it what it is. However, it's led into a whole generation of people who actually don't have much understanding or knowledge around sugar when it comes to their food, or even where to check to look for sugar content and what that actually means. If you are one of my clients, I know Sam used to get really irritated at me doing this because I did it quite a lot at one point, just because, I mean, it did get weirdly quite interesting. If you start to look at some sugar, you'll find there's all food packaging that sometimes the food packaging is not as straightforward as you think. This is something we do regularly with clients. There's at least 3 or 4 times a week. A client will send me a picture of something. And for example, I had a client last week who sent me a picture of a salad, and she misread the food label as a salad of 267 calories, and it's actually over 500, because the label, if you had the minute little, if you got like one of those loom things that jewelers, I look around my house like I have a loom in my house. However, if that's what it's called, we'll call it a spyglass, because you need one of them sometimes to see the details on the food packaging for her to understand actually what she thought was 200 odd calories was actually 500. And actually the sugar content in that salad was pretty high, and it was mainly down to the dressing, to be fair. So they're not straightforward when you're reading food packets, and that doesn't help the situation. And if you are clients, by the way, you know you can throw pictures at us and we'll tell you how to read them. It's not always as straightforward as you think. And it doesn't help sometimes that actually different supermarkets or suppliers, or whatever you want to call them, different companies either will label their food slightly differently. So some will say whole packet contains X amount of grams of sugar, or half packet contain X amount. So the habit I got into, which used to irritate Sam, I think it still does, is that I would actually work out by the grams how many teaspoons of sugar that would actually translate into. Oh. Because this is the thing about sugar when we're finding it in processed food. If I said to somebody, how many grams is this? Actually, there's no context, is there? Because we don't often carry around some scales and go, well, hang on a minute, Helen, yeah, let me get some context of this. Let me get a teaspoon out and start to ladle sugar onto some scales, and I can see visually what I'm eating in this meal, or what might be in this processed food, for example. However, it's fascinating when you do it. Just saying, there's plenty of online converters out there, which I've used plenty of. I have a favourite, obviously. However, you put your grams of sugar in, and it'll tell you how much that equates to in teaspoons of sugar. Now, with one particular client, we remain nameless, obviously, from years ago, we went over how many teaspoons of sugar this client was actually having throughout a given one day. And get ready for this. And this is unknown to the client because he thought she was really eating healthy. 18 teaspoons of sugar. 18. Now, if I put a... Oh, this is so bad, my desk is. If I had a mug of water and put 18 teaspoons of sugar into that and said, let's have a cup of tea, I don't think many people would get through the first sip of that because it'd be overpoweringly sweet. However, in reality, it's always an extreme case, right? She was an extreme case, because she was completely unknown that she was consuming this much sugar, and that was the impact in terms of calories, or just hidden calories as well. And that's one of the things that happens often. We are not looking necessarily for those kind of elements in what looks like a low-fat meal or a low-fat item, and therefore, without us even knowing it, we're consuming a high amount of sugar. There was a fascinating, I hope it's still on BBC Catch-Up, there was a fascinating documentary, I can't even remember the name of it now, based on sugar. There was a series of 3, and I think it was last year or the year before, and actually he did a lot of this visually, and the gentleman in question even asked asked people on the street, right, how much is in this as a drink, as a fruit juice, sugar as opposed to this, and which you think has more sugar, and everybody went for the Coke, and it turned out it was the smoothie. We'll say smoothie, let's not get names involved again. However, it's a sign of where sometimes we are misled by some products that they're healthier, when actually you can take, for example, a small pot of fruit like that, a little fruit juice, and get in, and you show them how I did it as well, like something insane, like thinking 12 oranges compressed down with all the pulp removed, but all of that natural sugar, which is all right, natural sugar is all okay. However, condensing it down, here's where again you can unknowingly walk into a diet or a nutritional situation where your sugar is very, very high without you knowing. Now, I'm going to go into some things that people notice when they work with us about this particular element of nutrition and when they're looking at diets. Firstly, I talked about where you can find with hidden stuff, and people think they are eating healthily, except actually the healthy choices still have a higher amount of sugar. And I've given some tips on how to find that and where to get a visual of that. It's always interesting to see a client's face when I go, that had 6 teaspoons of sugar in, did you know that? That's you're welcome. So, other things that generally notice. Now, one of the things we aim for when we start working with a client, and this might seem common sense, however, it's not always the case, is a gradual movement away from more processed food and towards, this is a terminology, whole food, okay? So actually regressing back the timeline I talked about, where we go to processed foods for nutrition and back into more stuff that we can find naturally, so like fruits and stuff that we would have found. I'm not asking you to go out in caveman material or anything like that, just to move away progressively and slowly away from processed food. And actually the fascinating thing is that clients I've worked with will always come back at some point and comment about, there was one just Thursday last week where I was talking to a client about sugar in tea and coffee, and she said that her other half accidentally made her, I think that he normally has a sugar, and he put it in the wrong one, in the wrong mug by accident, and she took one sip and she said she felt her whole face kind of go, ugh, because those listening, I'm sorry I made a face. However, her taste buds over a period of 3 to 4 weeks has started to change, and that's a very common comment we get from clients, like how actually they may have diets full of consciously high processed sugar foods like junk food, etc., or sweets and chocolate, whatever it is, as well as some processed from that rather than drastically slowly move away from that, actually start to change. And inevitably, and I do encourage this, by the way, not just for this outcome, because I do think it's actually part of a standard lifestyle to enjoy some food now and again that you do enjoy. I'll say to a client, like, literally, let's, as a treat, let's build some stuff into your diet so you get a good balance of food on that range. If you found ice cream, okay, cool, chocolate cake, okay. and actually exchanged somewhere else for other deemed healthier or low sugar or low fat foods, which is actually high in sugar. So conversely, actually, you go through a process of flipping over sugar. And lots of clients will also say, you know, my sugar, my sweet tooth seems to have, I don't know where it's gone. I don't have it as much. It takes some time and some dedication. Guess really does. And that's why we like it in our foods without us even realizing it. It makes everything taste nicer. Hence why she made this sugar song. As I said, we way back when, we naturally, instinctively veer away from bitter foods because they were usually poisonous, and actually went towards sweet foods like berries and stuff that you can see naturally growing still now, because those are the things that we instinctively knew that we could eat and would be dangerous for us. Now, that being said, I said chocolate bars do not grow on trees, and so we don't have the same reason to be doing it now. We're doing it for other reasons. So initially, obviously, we did go for low GI foods, etc. It was part of staple food. However, the what's the word? Arrival? That's the word I'll use. The arrival of processed food meant also the arrival of processed sugar in food, along with a heap of other stuff that makes them very, very moreish, and we like them very much. The cost of that was a lot of hidden sugar, and then add in the low fat period of time, which I don't know when that was, but I do remember it quite strongly. We then had the result of sugar being in lots and lots of foods everywhere all over the place without us even knowing it was there. And the result is a lot of people with sugar highs and lows, thinking they're choosing healthy foods because labels look healthy. However, when you get down to it, they are consuming and over-consuming on their calories when it comes to sugar. So I talked about some packaging. Start to become aware of this stuff. Start to have a look at it, not just the calories, but the what's in these foods. Often when you're going, if you are for processed foods, because sometimes the thing right next to it is just as great in terms of calories and may have a less sugar content, and that naturally would be better for you. Then again, going back to the natural whole earth foods that have a low GI, won't try and say it again. So things like beans, lentils, pulses, brown rice, all of that is really good in terms of a lower GI and a slower energy release, and therefore a lower sugar release as well, which is always beneficial. And please, for the love of God, do not cut out sugar entirely, because it still makes medicine go down and helps us all at least at some point during our lives. Right. I think it's taking a break tomorrow. Not taking a break, literally. It's about taking a break. So that is at 5 o'clock tomorrow. For now, have a fantastic evening, and I apologise if I've given you too many songs in your head in the meantime. And I will catch you tomorrow.